In the dark room as evening fell, the doorbell rang. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and looked at the monitor. My mother-in-law and Cindy were standing side by side. I thought, I wonder if they've come to help. I hurried to the entrance. Upon opening the door, I was surprised. "Come on, please. Bring everything in." At my mother-in-law's signal, people who seemed to be movers started entering the house, saying, "Excuse us." "What? Huh? What's going on?" Hearing my confused voice, Ryan rushed down from his room on the second floor. "What's the matter, Mom?" Ryan asked while watching the movers bustling around. Looking puzzled at Ryan, my mother-in-law and Cindy said, "We're taking over my son's house. You guys need to leave." Yeah, yeah, leave right now." Meanwhile, my father-in-law was smoothly giving orders, and the belongings were being moved into the living room and other rooms rapidly. Suddenly, an astonished Ryan raised his voice. "That's not right? Don't you guys know?" Looking at Ryan, his face was pale. "This house is no longer Dad's property, and there are ghosts here." My father-in-law turned around, and the movers stopped in their tracks. With all eyes on him, Ryan was trembling. "My name is Amy, and I am 41 years old. My husband, Jason, was 42 years old and a company employee. He's gentle, doesn't drink alcohol, smoke, or gamble. He worked diligently every day for the family. Jason's only hobby was watching movies with me on holidays. Until last year, our son Ryan used to join us, but since starting junior high, he's been spending more time with club activities and friends. Although I felt lonely, it seemed Jason found it endearing. He didn't attend the private high school recommended by his parents but went to a local public high school where he served as the class president and student council president. And he fondly talked about his high school best friend. "Your best friend was Brian, right? You've always been an honor student, Jason," I said teasingly. Jason laughed in response. If Mom and Dad heard that, they'd definitely deny it. Lost in memories, Jason muttered, "My school days were fun." "What about now? Is it fun?" I asked him while watching a rented DVD, and Jason replied, "It's fun." After looking around the living room, Jason said, "More than fun, I'd say I'm happy. I have a house I chose for myself, a kind wife, and a healthy son." His face showed he truly felt there was nothing more he could wish for, which made me blush as I listened. "You should say you have a beautiful wife," I quipped, trying to hide my embarrassment. Jason laughed and said, Right, right, I'm happy to have a beautiful wife. And I need to work hard to pay off the mortgage." Our home had a mortgage. Even though I'm a stay-at-home wife, Jason planned our finances so we could comfortably make the mortgage payments. I have a kind husband, and I feel I'm the luckier one. While watching a DVD with Jason, that's what I was thinking in my heart. Jason continued to say he's happy after marriage, but maybe he wasn't so happy when he was living at his parents' house before we got married. I could see that his relationship with his parents and his sister Cindy didn't seem very good. I heard that his decision not to attend the high school his parents recommended was a source of friction. Cindy, who is 2 years older than Jason, followed her parents' wishes and went to the high school they chose. She passed the entrance exams for both high school and college as her parents wanted and got a job at a company they approved of. She's become unable to think or decide for herself. According to Jason, that seemed to be the case. It's easier to just follow what her parents say, but doing so can lead to losing the ability to think independently. She became unable to adapt to situations on the spot or make her own decisions and act on them. As a result, she was seen as someone who couldn't take initiative at her job. Her relationships with her colleagues deteriorated, and she eventually left the company. Then her parents quickly introduced her to a couple they knew and got her married to their son. Despite having Jason, they brought in a son-in-law to live with them. I don't understand the need to adopt a son-in-law when they have Jason. Moreover, they aren't particularly wealthy, and Jason's father is just an ordinary office worker. I didn't see the necessity of straining financially to send their children to private schools. Oh, that's just foolish pride, according to Dad and Mom. There's a wealthy family living near his parents' house. Their daughter was in the same grade as Cindy. While they played with the neighborhood kids when they were younger, she went to a private school starting from elementary school and began distancing herself from the other kids. Though nothing particular happened with that family, Jason's parents were very envious of that child and her family. They desperately saved money to send Cindy to a private high school because they wanted their daughter to attend one as well. It seemed to result in simpler dinners at home, but Cindy's lunch was always made extravagantly. Jason, who didn't see the need for such sacrifice to attend a private high school, chose to go to a public high school. I think it was the right decision. However, his parents were furious, and their attitude towards Jason changed drastically from that day. They seemed proud when mentioning the name of the high school their daughter attended and receiving envious looks. When asked about their son, perhaps they felt embarrassed to say he was attending a public high school. But even if they dreamed of a high-class life, it probably wouldn't have been all that great. The rented house where my in-laws, Cindy and her husband, and their 3 children live, accommodates 7 people in total. I'm not saying renting is bad, but I wonder if there could have been more meaningful ways to use their money aside from maintaining appearances. They even went into debt to send Cindy to private high school and college, and they are still paying it off. I just can't understand my in-laws' way of thinking or their attitude toward money. This applies to the Christmas gift money as well. The amount given to Cindy's children compared to Ryan was significantly different. It might be because they live with their grandchildren, but I feel sorry for Ryan. I sighed, wondering if this would affect Ryan. It seems my in-laws didn't like the fact that we owned our home either. It's a 2-story detached house. Our 4-room house was more spacious than my in-law. Having a study room. How presumptuous for someone from a public school, haha. You're really living in a house that doesn't suit you. They would say such things with sarcasm when they visited our house. Furthermore, they'd pick on any imperfection they could find, like a stain here or discolored carpet there, and then say it's not a big deal at all. I don't see the point in making such comments. If they don't like it, they shouldn't come over. According to Jason, they're probably just jealous. They don't have money, but they're envious that we, despite paying a mortgage, were able to buy a house. Jason laughed, saying it was all because of their excessive pride. My brother-in-law's salary isn't low, after all. Even my father-in-law, who is in his 60s, is still working. However, it's the mortgage repayments that are holding them back. You don't need to worry about it, Jason would say. But when Jason and Ryan are not around, my mother-in-law and Cindy would come over. Lately, they've even started walking around the house on their own while I'm preparing coffee. This should be our bedroom. My husband likes this guest room. This room is spacious. It would make a great study room for the kids. They'd discuss among themselves. What are you doing? I finally expressed my discomfort. Suddenly, they both flashed insincere smiles. Oh dear, we were just looking around. Right? You were just slow in serving coffee. I closed the door of the room they were peeking into and asked them to return to the living room. I was a bit horrified when my mother-in-law expressed her desire for a duplicate key. There's no way I could give a key to someone who roams around the house as they please. There's even the possibility that they could enter the house when no one's around and rummage through drawers and closets. While they've been extremely strict with Jason, their demand for a spare key seemed too self-centered. I'll need to discuss that with Jason first. I dodged the issue at the moment and had Jason clearly refuse over the phone when he returned. How can you not give a key to your own parents? My mother-in-law was furious, but it's only natural since, unfortunately, they're not trustworthy. Please, only come over when either one of us is home, Jason said this and hung up the phone. Health is the most important, as the saying goes. This year, the true meaning of those words deeply resonated with me. Jason was found to have cancer. We were at a loss for words when the tests he underwent for stomach discomfort revealed the cancer. With each test, they discovered more and more cancer spreading throughout his body. Without surgery, he was given only a few months to live. Though we had insurance, it wasn't enough. Not just the hospital bills, but also the living expenses and the mortgage remained. The happiness we had built seemed to crumble in an instant. I was paralyzed by the fear of losing Jason and the uncertainty about our future. Clueless about what to do, I was merely terrified. We should consult with my family. My parents had already passed away. Being an only child, I had no relatives to turn to in times like this. Yes, let's do that. I'll go with you. We informed Jason's parents and Cindy and her husband about the illness and sought financial help. Isn't cancer treatment quite advanced these days? Cindy seemed not to fully grasp the situation. Well, not as much as Cindy. Jason's parents were also hesitant to help. I heard you finished paying off your debts a few months ago. Yes, we finally paid everything off. Please, we will definitely repay you. Lend us the money we need for the surgery and hospitalization. Please lend us the money you had planned to use for my private school tuition. Please, I will work as well, so please, help us. We requested for financial help in the sincerest way possible. That's impossible. We've just started to afford some luxuries recently. I have insurance that will waive the mortgage if I die. When that happens, we will sell the house and definitely repay the debt. I'll even write a promissory note. We pleaded repeatedly. However, as we somewhat expected, Jason's parents did not agree, and we were left in despair. Well, why don't you just sell the house now? Of course, we also considered that as the last resort. But if we sell it now, after paying off the mortgage balance from the sale proceeds, we would still need to cover hospital and treatment costs, as well as rent for a new home. I heard that Jason used to send money home when he was single. It seemed only fair that they could use some money for Jason's sake without any backlash. No matter how many times we pleaded, however, the answer from my in-laws and Cindy remained unchanged. Jason straightened his back and said in a calm voice, "I understand, that's enough." As we were leaving the house, Jason's brother-in-law followed us out, saying, "Wait a minute. I know this isn't nearly enough, and it's embarrassing to say, but I don't have any savings." He quietly handed Jason $1,000. It was only natural that he had no savings since he had also been helping with the debt repayment. Despite their proud claim of finally repaying it all, it was also thanks to Jason's brother-in-law. I'll try to persuade them once more. Please don't lose heart. We deeply thank Jason's brother-in-law, who offered to help again. Thank you so much. Just your offer is enough for us. But even so, do you have any plans? Yes, as Cindy suggested, we're thinking of selling the house. What? I couldn't help but exclaim. Selling the house is easier said than done, considering the procedures and time it would take. It wouldn't be in time for Jason, who was going into the hospital in a few days. Even if it's sold, we'd need to find a new place to live. It's not as simple as it sounds. It's okay. I've just remembered someone who might be able to help, Jason said, smiling at me. In the 2 years since the cancer was found, Jason fought bravely. Despite being given only months to live, he managed to create many happy memories with our family through repeated hospitalizations. Although we had become quite estranged, when the doctor said he probably won't be able to go home again, I contacted Jason's family. After that, they did visit a few times, but they would quickly leave after making indifferent comments like, "He still seems to be okay." It's like they're just checking to see how much longer Jason has. I shook my head quickly, trying to dismiss such a distressing thought. When the doctor advised us to inform the family, the inevitable time had arrived. I rushed to call my mother-in-law. "Oh my, that's serious. We must hurry." "Yes, please come to the hospital room right away." "Huh? Oh, yes, I'll come if I can." After the call abruptly ended, despite feeling uneasy, I returned to the hospital room where Jason and Ryan were waiting. In the end, the only people who came were Jason's brother-in-law, who came directly from work, and Jason's close friend, Brian. Jason, who had just opened his eyes faintly and happily, looked at all of our faces before peacefully closing his eyelids. Jason's brother-in-law and Brian helped with the funeral arrangements. While we went back home to prepare, Jason's brother-in-law stayed with Jason, and Brian drove us. It was morning when we left the house after receiving the call from the hospital, but the sun was already setting in the west. Both Ryan and I had rushed out so quickly that morning that we hadn't even cleaned up after breakfast. In the dimly lit house at dusk, I turned on the lights. Sitting in the brightened living room, I flipped through an album. As I turned the pages, tears fell involuntarily. Wiping the tears that had fallen onto the table with my hand, I chose a photo from the memories to use for the funeral. Then the doorbell rang. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and looked at the monitor. There stood my mother-in-law and Cindy. I thought, oh, maybe they've come to help. Although they hadn't made it in time for the end, I hurried to the entrance, thinking they had come. Opening the door, I was shocked. Come on, please. Bring everything in. At my mother-in-law's signal, people who looked like movers began entering the house, saying, "Excuse us." What? Huh? What's going on? At my bewildered voice, Ryan hurried down from his room on the second floor. What's wrong, Mom? Ryan asked while watching the movers bustle about. Looking back at the confused Ryan, my mother-in-law and Cindy said, "We're taking over this house. You guys need to leave." Haha, exactly. Leave right now. Meanwhile, my father-in-law was smoothly giving orders, and belongings were being moved into the living room and other rooms. Suddenly, a surprised Ryan exclaimed, "That's not right? Do you guys not know?" Looking at Ryan, his face was pale. "This house is no longer Dad's property, and there are ghosts here." My father-in-law turned around, and the movers also stopped. While everyone was watching, Ryan was trembling. Then a person entered the house from the entrance. "What are you doing, moving things into someone else's house? Get everything out now." Everyone jumped at Brian's angry shout, which echoed throughout the house, perhaps even the neighborhood. Without checking with the clients, the movers started to take out the belongings. And so, the belongings that were unclear what to do with were left on the street in front of the house. Whoa, my desk. I heard my nephew's voice and turned to see Jason's brother-in-law standing there with his 3 children. While the children were voicing their dissatisfaction about their belongings being thrown onto the street, Jason's brother-in-law asked Cindy, "I came here because I heard about a sudden move, but what's all this?" My usually calm brother-in-law was angry. "Huh? But Mom and Dad said they were moving. What are you talking about? You agreed to this." While my mother-in-law and Cindy argued, my brother-in-law coldly said, "I can no longer associate with you all. We're getting a divorce." "What? Wait, what are you?" My brother-in-law spoke directly to the movers and asked them to take only his and his children's belongings to his parents' house. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience at such a difficult time. For now, please take the children and the belongings to my parents' house." Ignoring Cindy, my brother-in-law and his children left with the movers. Cindy collapsed in tears on the street, while my in-laws stood dumbfounded among the scattered belongings. The neighbors also rushed over after hearing the commotion, turning the scene into something like a nightmare. "At least, can we move the belongings back inside the house for now since they're blocking the way?" Brian suggested, and I nodded. "Yes, that's fine. This is your house, after all." "What do you mean?" My in-laws stared at us, unable to comprehend. "Here's the truth. 2 years ago, the day after we were turned down when we asked my in-laws for money, Jason brought home a person with a very intimidating appearance. That person was Brian. He worked in real estate and even gave me his business card. I knew he was Jason's high school classmate, but his scary face and aura made me wonder if he was that kind of person. Ryan, still a middle schooler, was so scared that he sat close to me. I was worried too and glanced at Jason. Noticing my gaze, Jason tilted his head and after a while, he started laughing as if he had just realized something. It's okay. Ryan might look scary, but he's a respectable member of society now. Now, Ryan timidly pointed out. Ryan's eyes widened, and he smacked Jason on the head. Jason, I couldn't believe it. Jason was sick, but he just laughed it off. Ryan's face turned so pale that I was worried if he was still breathing. Ryan was invited to our wedding but didn't show up. He never visits even when we invite him to our house. Oh, that's right, I remembered. In the stories of Jason's school days and drinking outings, the name Brian often came up. He seemed like a reliable good friend, so I never thought they were the same person. See, with my scary looks, it would cause trouble if I went to the wedding or visited the house. So that's why you're still single? I'll hit you again. From their light teasing, I realized he was the Brian I'd heard about. I couldn't help but laugh while listening to their conversation. They both stopped and looked at me. Sorry, it's just nice to see Jason so happy. Huh? This guy is always like this. Ryan is here, remember? Maintaining a father's dignity is important. Dignity. I don't have that anyway. Ryan. Even Ryan chimed in, lightening the mood. I told Brian how disappointed Jason was that he couldn't come to our wedding and encouraged him to visit anytime. Thank you. Let's get down to business now since we're short on time. Brian's expression turned serious, and the atmosphere changed. First, please show me around the house. He inspected each room, checking their conditions. After examining everything from the exterior walls to the utility boxes, he pulled out his laptop and began typing something. After a while, he showed us the screen. How about this price? I was surprised by the amount he proposed. It was higher than what we paid when we bought the house. Oh, that's a very generous appraisal, but can it really sell for that price? It's been over 10 years since we moved in, and if it doesn't sell, that would be problematic. We hadn't done any major renovations in years. Just as my mother-in-law and Cindy mentioned, there are some stains, and the carpet is old. Yes, I heard about that from Jason, but they were planning to continue using the rooms as they are, weren't they? Yes. So, they believe the current condition is still perfectly livable. Don't worry, we can sell it at this price. Brian assured us, and Jason said, you can trust him. Understood, please proceed at this price, I agreed, nodding. As I did, Brian laid out several documents on the table. Right, we also need to find a new place to live, I mentioned. Yes, of course, Brian responded with a smile, placing a rental agreement form on the table. First, I will buy this house directly, resolving your first concern. Then, I will lease this house back to you. Addressing the second concern, he explained. What? As I expressed my surprise, Brian continued. The purchase amount for the house will be transferred to your account within a few days. You can use it to pay off the remaining mortgage. With this, everything is resolved, Brian said with a bright smile. That smile, so pure and boyish, completely dispelled the intimidating impression he had given off earlier. While signing the documents, I noticed the rental fee. $100. Jason and Ryan, equally surprised, leaned in to look at the document. Isn't it supposed to be $1,000? Jason asked. It's not a mistake, Brian replied. I owe Jason about that much. After a moment, Jason responded, no, you don't. However, Brian shared a story from their school days with me. He used to be a real troublemaker, frequently involved with the police and getting into fights that left his mother in tears. One day, his mother, who was a single parent, was hospitalized due to exhaustion and stress. Seeing his mother so frail and thin shocked him, and he cried like a child, blaming himself. Afterward, he changed his ways, avoiding fights and staying out of trouble with the police. However, one day, a cigarette butt caused a minor fire at school, and Brian, with his bad reputation, was the prime suspect. Despite his denials, no one believed him due to his past. When it seemed like he would be expelled and possibly upset his mother again, being labeled as the culprit, Jason believed in Brian's words. Jason was the only one who believed in my innocence. He was the student council president at the time, even though we'd never really spoken before. Jason protested to the principal's office, gathered evidence, and found the real culprit. I mean, he was adamant he didn't do it. You'd believe him, right? Normally, no one would believe it. But thanks to you, I graduated high school, made my mother proud, and even became a company president. Acknowledging the deep gratitude he felt, we, as a family, decided to gratefully accept his rental offer. That was the event from 2 years ago. As Ryan said, I now own this house and am just leasing it to Jason's family. If you don't believe me, I can show you the documents later. Brian glanced at Ryan before turning back to my in-laws with a smile. If you want to rent the house, you can do so. Shall I rent it to you at a bargain price? He smiled at my surprise. Would you like me to introduce you to a new property as well? After the funeral, we moved out of the house and relocated to a 2-room apartment that Brian had recommended. Just take the bare minimum of the belongings. We'll be able to move back into that house soon, Brian said with a sly smile, prompting me to ask why he thought so. Ryan, also intrigued, came closer to listen. Actually, I was thinking of kicking them out right away, but then I changed my mind. Listen, here's the plan. Brian leaned in to tell us a secret. 3 days later, we returned to the house, claiming we had forgotten some belongings. Brian came with us, and my mother-in-law reluctantly served us coffee. How's the living condition? Well, it's not bad, my father-in-law said contentedly, to which Ryan inquired, really? Yes, really. But haven't you heard any noises, like on the stairs or in the bathroom when no one should be there? Ryan looked around the living room anxiously. You mentioned it, didn't you, Ryan? About the house being haunted. Yes, Mom might not know, but after Dad got hospitalized, I started hearing strange noises. Once, I saw the hem of a skirt at the top of the stairs, thinking Mom was home, but when I checked, no one was there. Surely, that can't be. My mother-in-law interjected, but Ryan and Brian looked up at the second floor in surprise. Is someone upstairs? There shouldn't be anyone. Cindy, now downhearted from the divorce, was silently sitting in the living room. Hey, don't talk nonsense. I didn't hear anything. Ryan and Brian exchanged glances and quickly started packing up. That's good then. We'll take our leave. They rushed out of the house and quickly got into the car, leaving my in-laws with worried expressions at the doorstep. We burst into laughter inside the car. Brian's plan was to use the haunted lie Ryan came up with on the spur of the moment. It's their punishment for being cold to their own son, Jason. What kind of parents and sister prepared to move into a house while their critically ill son lies unvisited? The words Brian spat out while driving felt genuinely accurate. It turns out that Brian and Ryan kept up the act, and eventually, unmentioned paranormal activities began occurring in the house. My in-laws and Cindy became frightened of everything, mistaking house noises for poltergeists. They complained to Brian and Ryan, but we never experienced such things. Beliefs can be scary. Ryan said that, laughing. Eventually, unable to bear it, my in-laws and Cindy moved out of the house. They rented a place within their budget, introduced by Brian. Well, that was business. I made sure to find them an affordable, run-down apartment. Brian said that with a grin, and Ryan and I applauded. After the divorce, Cindy had to start working again to pay child support, experiencing the harshness of society. I sincerely hope she manages well, as she now has to take care of her parents. In the end, we moved back into the house Jason and I bought together. While we couldn't buy it back, we're still living there, paying only $100 in rent. My brother-in-law and his 3 children occasionally visit us. Cindy seems to want to reconcile, but he's not considering it at the moment. Once a month, on the anniversary of Jason's passing, Brian visits under the guise of collecting rent. We dine together, and he even gives advice on Ryan's high school troubles. Ryan and I have a secret joy. During dinner, we occasionally hear stories about Jason's school days, learning new facets of him. I imagine Jason, too, is with us at the dining table, laughing along, perhaps making excuses like a child.